on the 49ers who to me are a lock to make this roster, if healthy and signed. That means there are 56 players, 56, fighting for 19 roster spots. We're going to talk about all of that, the whole 90-man roster breakdown, plus we will predict Brock Purdy's statistics for the coming season. Here in 17 seconds, myself and Rohan, stay tuned.
Back to throw Montana. Steps up, throws. The 49ers have won the Super Bowl.
And now your host, Ryan Hensley.
Ryan Hensley. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. What's up, Rohan, man? How you doing, buddy? Oh, can't hear you, man. Can't hear you, brother.
We good now?
We're good now.
Perfect. No, I appreciate you having me on as always. Happy Friday to everybody. And yeah, I'm excited.
I was just complimenting Rohan. And look how well groomed this young man is with he's got the hair and the collar shirt. He looks very professional right now. And I got to give my shout out to Rohan for his professionalism this morning.
Thank you, man. I mean, just starting the weekend off a little good. So
yeah,
there we just got to pull a little something out for us.
Well, you look great, brother. You look great. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. We got a good show planned for you today. We're actually going to go over the entire 90-man roster. We won't dwell on guys that, don't need to be talked about, but we're going to go through it all. That's basically going to be the gist of the show. Before we dive into that, we're going to go over Brock Purdy's statistics, my prediction for his season, and get Rohan's opinion on what he thinks about that. Red Jet says, Rohan's looking dapper. Nice work, kiddo. Yeah, man. You're looking good, brother. You are. Dave Barkley's here, says, what's up to everybody? Shout out to everybody in the chat. Todd, Nick Nice, Red Jet, all you guys. Steven McGinnis is here as well. Melvin, what's up, man? Nice to see all you guys. Thank you guys for being here today. I took a few days off, busy with work stuff. So it feels like I haven't been live forever, but it's only been since Monday. But I'm glad to be back here with my guy, Rohan. Wanted to get your thoughts, first and foremost, on my season prediction for, not foremost, but definitely want to get your prediction on Brock Purdy. Let me go ahead and share in the screen what I'm looking at, and you can give me your feedback. This is what I have for Brock Purdy this coming season. Now, last year, 69.4 completion percentage, 4,280 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. This year, I have him getting more yards, about 21 yards more per game for a total of 4,650. 36 touchdowns, which is 5 more touchdowns than he had last year. More interceptions, about 3 more interceptions, and dropping 2 percentage points in completion. The reason why I think this is the direction I wanted to go with it, Ro, is because I feel like we're going to get a confident Brock Purdy, an aggressive Brock Purdy this coming season. It is basically a contract year for Brock Purdy. He's also familiar with the offense. He's had a whole full offseason. He's been working on his arm strength, arm velocity, running ability. I wouldn't be surprised if his rushing yards go up this year as well. But I think we're going to get a more aggressive Brock Purdy, which is going to lead to more yards, more touchdowns, and probably a few more interceptions and a little drop in his completion percentage because of it, which is fine with me. I think overall you're going to get a better Brock Purdy this coming season. And just because you have more interceptions or less completion percentage doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing better. Stats don't tell all. I think we're going to have a better Brock Purdy, but these are the stats I have predicted for Brock Purdy if he plays 17 games. I want to get your take.
To be honest, if this is Brock Purdy's stat line, that's a pretty darn good stat line to be happy about. 36 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 46 or 4,650 yards. That's in the Justin Herbert type tier where, that's where you're getting a lot of volume and you're throwing well. And even if you're throwing at 67% completion rate, that's really high. And I feel you. I think the 49ers are going to throw the ball a little bit more, not only for Brock Purdy, but just for the health of their offensive line and the health for their running backs. It makes sense to throw the ball a lot more also with the way that your roster's set up, you add another receiver. You have a receiver who wants a significant amount of volume. Debo Samuel's also, he's slimmer. He looks like he could command a good amount of volume as well. It just seems like the passing game could be, a bigger option in 2024. Now, will the 49ers shift to that? Of course, you got to see the results in order to believe it. But to me, I think that that's fairly realistic. Maybe I'd go a little lower on the passing yards just because to be on the safer side, the 49ers might be on in a couple of blowouts. Brock Purdy might not play a couple of fourth quarters. He might not even throw in a couple of fourth quarters. But overall, I mean, if that's the line, that's a pretty darn good line for Brock Purdy. He might end up in the MVP voting once again with that type of line.
Yeah, I think he's gonna do it, man. I mean, this is his opportunity. Every time, like, people have doubted Brock Purdy, including myself, he's risen to the occasion. What we saw last year from Brock Purdy was without an offseason, without a healthy elbow. So to me, it seems like this is the year he's going to get his bag. He's been healthy all offseason. He has a great offense around him, a lot of depth at that receiver position. I feel like he's going to push it, be a little bit more aggressive, and therefore more yards, more touchdowns. A couple more interceptions, but just because he has more interceptions doesn't mean he's doing worse. He could be doing better if he has this stat line. And I think he'll get it, man. I really do. As long as he stays healthy, and that's going to be the key, obviously. Real quick, man, Dave Barclay with the 99. I don't know what I've done to deserve Dave Barclay in my life, but Dave Barclay.
Shout out Dave Barclay, man, because he always drops something when I'm here. So shout out to him.
And you guys don't even know what I'm about to do after this. So Dave Barclay, $99 super chat, says Ryan the Man and the all-time intelligent Rohan. We love these shows and appreciate you guys. Buy yourself an HDMI, Ryan. Love these shows and love this chat. Let's get after it. First of all, thank you for the super chat, Dave. What Dave's talking about, man, he actually sent me a super box, and I'm going to pick it up. It's at my other office, which I barely go to, but I'm going to go pick it up after this show, Dave, because a super box, basically I can watch every channel for free, stream everything, every game for free. Dave sent that to me. It's at my office. I'm going to get it, and he's telling me to buy an HDMI cable. Dave, man, you are amazing, dude. I really appreciate you, man. Can't thank you enough, brother. And make sure you guys, if you're in Montana, Patriot Builders, that's Dave's company. Hit him up, man. He's a great dude, and I'm sure his construction ability is just as good as the quality of person he is. So, Dave, thank you, man. Rohan, anything else in regards to the stats for Brock Purdy? You think it's pretty good? What would you predict?
Yeah. I'd probably predict around 4,400 yards, around 35 touchdowns. I'd maybe go a little lower on the interceptions just because I don't know if the volume skyrockets as much. Maybe around 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, around the same 67-ish completion percentage. That makes sense. And I think, that's a pretty good stat line.
All right, man. So it sounds like we're pretty close in agreement here. All right, this is really what the show is about today. I imagine it's going to take pretty much the entire hour here to go over this, because we're going to be talking about the 49ers 90-man roster. Before I do, I wanted to share this real quick with you guys. Where is it at? Of course, if I could find it, which I can't. But basically, I did the calculations. I'll go ahead and share this page with you guys instead. I'm getting my spreadsheets together here. This is great for me. I just use it for my own personal use, and I will probably not have this up here the whole time because it's hard to see, but I have my own spreadsheet of the 49ers 90-man roster. And what's great about the way I did it is it takes me, it's all linkable, so I can click on Brandon Allen, takes me to all his information. But anyways, these guys in green, I think it's 36 of them, including, your kicker, punter, linebacker, long snapper. These guys in green to me are a lock. So we're going to go position by position. I think there's like 36 players on this that I have as a lock. And I want to get Rohan's opinion about, who am I missing? Maybe there's the guys that he thinks are a lock. And then we're going to talk about who's not going to who has zero chance, because I think there are a few guys that probably don't have much of a chance of making this team, if I'm being honest. But let's start at the easy stuff and get it out the way. I wish I could zoom in better on this. Here we go. Obviously, I don't think there's any debate here.
Right.
Your kicker's Jake Moody, your punter's Mitch Wisnowski, and your long snappers Tabor Pepper, right? So we can agree on those three and move forward.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes here. Let's start with quarterback. I have Brock Purdy as a lock on this team, believe it or not. I think he's going to make it. And then Josh Dobbs as well, because they signed him as the backup quarterback, paid him backup quarterback money. I'm assuming Josh Dobbs is going to make it. I think he's head and shoulders above Brandon Allen and Tanner Mordecai. So to me, Brock Purdy, Josh Dobbs, lock to make this team. You agree with those two?
I agree. I mean, they paid Josh Dobbs $2.25 million in guaranteed money. I know they paid Sudfeld something before and they cut him, but Dobbs, he has the experience. He's the backup, in my opinion.
Agreed. So what's debatable here, leaving, is Brandon Allen and Tanner Mordecai. Brandon Allen and Tanner Mordecai are, to me, battling it out for QB3, and I would assume Brandon Allen gets that spot, but you never know. I don't know enough about Tanner Mordecai to know whether he's going to beat out Brandon Allen, but I do know he's very similar in a lot of ways to Brock Purdy, and I'm just wondering, I think it's possible, not necessarily probable, but possible that Tanner Mordecai could beat out Brandon Allen for the QB3 spot. And Rohan, I guess my other question is, do you think three quarterbacks make the 53-man roster?
I've been a proponent of saying three quarterbacks should not be on the 53-man roster, especially if that third quarterback's a veteran like Brandon Allen. To me, I honestly think right now I would go with two quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. I think there's a ton of talent elsewhere. I also think Josh Dobbs is one of the more, he's a little bit more secure as a number two option, to where you don't have to keep that number three on your 53. You can keep it on the practice squad. I think probably right now, the one way in my mind that you keep three, or at least that you should keep three, is if Mordecai flashes in camp. He has a really nice training camp, and you feel that you might lose him. And so you can stash him on the 53-man roster. That's the way that I kind of see it. But for now, I think I'm going to go with two quarterbacks on my 53-man roster.
Yeah, the last two seasons they went with three. So, it wouldn't be surprised me if they go with three. I see your point. I like Josh Dobbs. I think he's an upgrade over Sam Darnold. To me, by far. I know a lot of people might disagree, but that's how I see it. I'd be okay with Brock Purdy and Josh Dobbs, but I think they'd probably go with three if I'm not. I don't know, just based on the last 2 years. So we'll see, though. All right, so I think we agree. Do you have any opinion on Brandon Allen or Tanner Mordecai? Who's going to win out in that regard?
At the moment, I would say Allen, just because he's got years in the system. Quarterback is a pretty hard position to learn in the Shanahan offense, even if it is a favorable position for, a favorable spot for that job. But for now, I'll say Brandon Allen is the number three.
All right. And before we move forward, Justin says, I'm going to dark side with these spreadsheets. I'm a mortgage lender, real estate broker. I've been using spreadsheets for 20 years. He didn't invent them, guys. I promise. Sometimes it's good to be a little organized. But I get the joke. I see what you guys are saying. All right. Halfback. Let's talk about this. Christian McCaffrey, I think, is going to make the team. So I got him as a lock. I actually, a lot of people would probably lock Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason. And I'm not sure what your take is on that, but I think this is more wide open than a lot of people think. Elijah Mitchell is one of the guys, to me, that I could see being on the trade block. Like, I could see them saying, hey, Elijah, it's been great. You're at the end of your contract. You're injured all the time. You're great when you're here, but we got some young dudes here to replace you that we can get more years with, and we're going to trade you for a 6th-round pick or something like that. So that's why I don't have Elijah there. I would want to put Jordan on here because I like Jordan Mason a lot, but Kyle hasn't really shown me that he loves Jordan Mason like I love Jordan Mason. And they drafted 2 running backs, Isaac Grendo and Cody Schrader. They also have Patrick Taylor, who they signed. I don't think Patrick Taylor has a shot in hell to make this 53-man roster. So I would probably mark him as in red as no chance. But how many halfbacks do you think they're going to keep, and who are those guys?
Yeah, I think right now you're set up to keep 4. I think 4 has kind of been their sweet spot the last few years. McCaffrey, obviously a lock. Elijah Mitchell, it's interesting because I definitely could understand him being on the trade block. The only thing is, for me, when it comes to Elijah Mitchell, I always point to one thing, and that's the staff's reliability and confidence in him. Mitchell has been a guy who doesn't fumble the football. The staff clearly values that. We've seen Jordan Mason go through fumble issues. Isaac Rando is essentially, he's a young kid. He's a rookie in this offense. You don't know how much a rookie is going to play, especially a 6th-round rookie overall. Even if he is kind of the future for Mitchell, I that's what really kind of pushes me towards saying Mitchell will be on this roster. Thought if you were going to trade him, you'd hope to get value in the draft this year, a day 3 pick, and then you could kind of use that to help your roster this year. So for now, I'm thinking it's going to be 4. I think it's the top 4 on your list. I know Cody Schrader's gotten a lot of buzz as an undrafted guy. I don't think he beats out one of these 4 guys. I think he's a solid practice squad guy. I also don't think he goes claimed on another roster. I think you can put him on the practice squad for a year, 2 years, and then maybe evaluate in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right. If they keep Elijah Mitchell, he's definitely going to make the 53. Like, if they're either, I can see them trading him. I think that's a possibility along with another player I'll talk about later. But I think most likely what's probable is they roll with Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Isaac Grendo. Because if you released Isaac Grendo, someone's going to snatch him up purely because of his athleticism and give him a shot, I would imagine. And like you said, I think they can sneak Cody and Patrick Taylor onto the practice squad. If Patrick Taylor's still eligible, I'm not sure. But I think I agree with you. I wanted to answer Alberto's question while we're here talking halfbacks. Is CMC really holding out to do a contract extension? So my understanding is the reason he's not here is because of wedding stuff, but that he does want to be paid. So both are true. Like, if he wasn't getting married, he'd probably be here, but he'd still want to get some kind of further compensation for the season. So I don't think he's in a holdout situation, but I do think he has expressed a desire to get paid. Is that what you've heard, Rohan?
Yeah, it makes sense that he has a desire to be paid because the guaranteed money on his contract isn't that much. Remember when McCaffrey got traded here, he had no guaranteed money on the 3-year, 36 million remaining on his contract. Last year, the Niners did a restructure, so that guaranteed him some money. So you might expect him to want some more financial security in that regard. But if I'm being honest, McCaffrey's the one player I'm really not worried about when it comes to the relationship with the team. We all know about the well documented relationship between the families, the Shanahans and the McCaffreys. I think that kind of situation would get handled. Kyle Shanahan has good communication with McCaffrey. I'm not too worried about that situation if there was something that was to amount.
Yeah, I think that whatever it is will be worked out, and CMC will show up. But yeah, my understanding is he's getting married, and that's the real reason he's not up. But he has expressed stuff, and there has been talk about some business issues that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk fullback. Kyle Juszczyk's the only fullback on the roster right now. I have him as a lock, obviously. Let's talk tight end, man. This one is interesting to me because there's been quite a bit of movement. George Kittle obviously is going to make the team, believe it or not. And then after that, you got Cam Latu, who has been injured for quite some time, still injured, unable to practice. Braden Willis, who my guy Grant says has looked really good in practice. Mason Pline, who I know other people really like. Eric Sobert and Jake Tonges, if I'm saying that correctly. Do you have an idea of how many tight ends they're going to keep and which ones?
Yeah, tight end is interesting again because the Niners usually like to keep 4. The question is, are there 4 rosterable tight ends right now that you're willing to spend a roster spot on compared to some of the other spots on the roster or other positions on the roster? I don't know. I honestly don't know. If I were to guess though, I would say 4 just because I think the Niners would go into the year with at least one veteran on their team as well as the 2 young guys that they drafted last year. But I think this is a crucial offseason for Latu and Willis in the sense that they have an opportunity to you could be the number 2. One of those guys could be the number 2 in 24. The Niners are looking for that guy. If that's the case, if one of those guys breaks out, I could see him taking 3. But also, the one issue is Latu has had injury issues. Do you want to carry lower numbers at the position when you have a guy who's kind of had some injury issues, early in his career? I don't know.
Yeah.
So if I were to guess right now, I'd say 4. I would go Kittle, Latu, Willis, and Eric Sober.
Eric, okay, great. Yeah, I've heard great things about Braden Willis. Braden Willis is probably the only guy that got real meaningful playing time last year with the 49ers out of all of these guys. He's looked okay. He did have that holding call in the Super Bowl, which hurt. But he's the type of, the Niners, you seem to see guys that if they play a little bit rookie season, that means they're going to play a little bit more sophomore season. Braden Willis did get a little bit of love, but who knows what would have happened if Cam Latu was available. Now, you were there with me. Like, we were both there last year at training camp. Cam Latu did pretty much everything right. He was big, strong, fast, and got open all the time. But the problem is he could not catch a football to save his life. That was before he got injured. So I was impressed with everything from Cam Latu, except for his ability to catch the football, which is kind of important. So I think roster politics gets Cam Latu on this team if he's healthy, most likely, and he can get rid of his drops issues, and maybe he'll bounce back. I think Braden Willis makes it. Kittle obviously makes it. I'm not sure about Eric Sober. You might be right, but there are a lot of positive stuff coming back on Mason Pline, who is a undrafted free agent tight end. So maybe they go that way, but that's a lot of youth. So if I had to bet between Pline and Sober, I'd probably bet Sober, and I agree with you. So I think that's pretty accurate, brother. Which is pretty common for everything Rohan does here. All right, man. You want to go wide receivers or offensive line next?
We can go wide receivers. I think we'll have a nice discussion here.
All right, let's go. I don't know why I can't stop clicking on things here. Oh, it's because of that. There we go. All right. So wide receivers. Why is it? There we go. Wide receivers. This one's interesting, brother. There's technically Brandon Ayuk hasn't signed his contract extension. So I don't even know necessarily if he's going to be here. Most likely he will be, hopefully with the new contract and not on a 5th year, which means he'll miss probably 7, 8 games at least. If they go that route with him, I'd imagine he'd hold out quite a bit. So this one's tricky, but let's assume they figure it out with Brandon Ayuk for this exercise. Assuming that he signs an extension, Brandon Ayuk is here. He's your number 1 wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel, obviously, looking thin, wearing number 1. He'll be back. Ricky Pearsall has yet to sign his rookie contract. Probably just formalities, working out the details. I'm sure he'll sign soon, but technically he's not even on the roster as of the moment. But again, like Brandon Ayuk, I'm going to assume that that's going to be fine. And with Ricky, very little question. Jacob Cowing, another pick the 49ers got this year, looks really good. I'm assuming he's already signed. I'm assuming he's going to make the squad. And then another one that's interesting, Juwan Jennings. A lot of people thought he signed his 5th-year tender. Actually never did. He's still technically not on the roster as of right now. So maybe I shouldn't assume so much. Before we jump into the other guys, give me your take on BA, Juwan Jennings. Really, I mean, we know Ricky's going to sign, but what do you think is going to happen with BA and Juwan?
For BA, I think it's the extension. I think that's ultimately the end goal. Again, we know these things take time. But right at this point, I think extension is going to be the case. Regardless, I expect him to play in 2024. The Niners have been adamant that even if an extension for some reason doesn't get signed, it's going to be the 5th-year option. Ayuk really doesn't really have a choice here. As for Jennings, I mean we've heard reports, and I heard myself that he's wanted an extension. Probably like a multi-year, 2-year extension type of thing. And so that's what I'm kind of expecting. That's what I think he's expecting. Ultimately, though, I think he's going to end up signing his tender, and I think he's going to play his final year out with the 49ers and then evaluate his options in free agency.
Yeah, and a lot of people are wondering, why did the 49ers draft 2 wide receivers? And myself included, and I wanted them to go O-line, and I still think they should have, to be honest. But I think the reason why is because you have this situation with Brandon Ayuk. They were considering trading Deebo up into the 2nd round of the draft as well, and Juwan Jennings has yet to sign his tender. So they were kind of hedging against those situations. And it's interesting because if Jacob Cowing looks amazing, if Ricky Pearsall looks amazing over these next, whatever, OTAs, training camp, if those guys look great, if Danny Gray somehow emerges, if Ronnie Bell looks improved, if Tariq Owens looks 75% as good as his dad, then that gives the 49ers a little bit more leverage with guys like BA and Juwan Jennings. If they really want to play hardball, they can just say, hey, man, we're confident in these guys behind you. We want you back, but we're confident in the guys behind you. So this is our limitation, what we're able to do. What do you want to do? And they can go that route. And I think that's why they drafted those guys. But ultimately, you think BA, Juwan Jennings will both be here to start
Yeah,
preseason? Okay.
I do. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, and that's why I have them all locks. If they're signed and healthy, all these people in green to me are locks. So if BA and Juwan are signed and healthy, they're locks on this team. So I got 5 locks at the wide receiver position. First of all, do you agree with those locks?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They made an investment when they drafted Cowling with the 4th round. The other 3, like I said, I expect Ayuk and Jennings to be here. Debo Samuel's a lock to be on the roster now. Ricky Pearsall's a 1st round pick. That's a lock. And so I think for the first time in a while, we probably have, or I guess we've had, 4 to 5 locks in the past, but this is a pretty set receiver core with the top 5.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about corner in a minute, but I honestly think wide receiver and corner are probably the 2 strongest position groups on the team. We'll talk and maybe I'll get your answer on that, but we'll go over defense here in a minute. But before we get there, man, I think the 49ers are going to keep 6 receivers. So the question is, there's 6 guys fighting for one spot on this roster. Who's it going to be, man? Danny Gray, Ronnie Bell, Tariq Owens, Tay Martin, Chris Conley, or Trent Taylor?
I think right now, if I were to say, it would be Ronnie Bell. I think this is a crucial offseason for Danny Gray. Has to put it together, be it injuries, be it, whatever the reason was in the past, he's got to put it together. I think right now, though, the guys that I look at, I think it's a kind of a 3-man race. I know there's a lot of Trent Taylor buzz. Chris Conley was a guy also who competed last year, but the reason that I'm not going to involve him is because I think you can get him on the practice squad as you did last year. I think you can be one of those veterans in the practice squad. I'm curious to see, though, if a guy like Tay Martin can take a step up. He's a guy who I've kind of liked the last 2 off seasons. If he can take a step up and maybe earn that 6th role, he's a guy. Ronnie Bell obviously had some value last year. He was a returner at times, a receiver at times. If he could kind of just put it all together, with some of the inconsistencies he had dropping the football, both in as a receiver and as a punt returner, I think that job's for him. And then Gray, obviously, he's the last piece. If I were to give it right now, I'd probably give it to Bell.
Yeah, I can see it being Bell. The one thing though about Bell is he's the guy they drafted last year, and they still decided to draft Jacob Cowing and Ricky Pearsall. So, is that a signal for something? I also have heard that Danny Gray has done really well this OTAs, and there was a lot of high expectations for him. This is kind of his last shot, and that dude is a burner. Was he a 4.29 speed, I believe?
Yeah.
So Danny Gray is the fastest guy on this roster. Maybe they find a use for him. And then Tariq Owens, man, I keep saying this, but his dad was so damn talented. When you watch Tariq Owens run, he looks similar to his dad. I'd be surprised if he was able to do it, but also not surprised because he has that DNA. If Tariq Owens can somehow fight and push his way into that 6th spot, that would be interesting. Tay Martin is a guy I've been kind of pushing along over the last couple of years. He's got the size, which I really like about Tay Martin. So he's a different kind of receiver. He's not as big as Juwan Jennings, but he's got some size to him over these other guys. So that's interesting. Chris Conley, I think, if I'm being real, man, Chris Conley might be the most well-rounded receiver out of these bottom 6 dudes. But because of roster politics and he's an old veteran that they could sneak onto the practice squad, like you said, they probably won't put him on the 53-man. But I think if you were just watching and you were just basing everything on production, I think it would be Chris Conley would actually make the team. And then they paid Trent Taylor $1 million, but it wasn't guaranteed, right? And they brought him over possibly for kick return, punt return. So he has special teams value. So I don't know, man. This 6th spot is very hard for me to call. You said if you had to predict, you would go Ronnie Bell.
Yeah, I would probably.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, damn it, it's probably Ronnie Bell because of roster politics. They don't want to cut a guy they just drafted last year. So yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Ronnie Bell. Unfortunately, we agree too much. Anything else on these wide receivers before we move on to O-line?
Pretty deep group, you know. I mean, you got the 5 locks, you got a good competition. Excited to see kind of how that competition molds the group, kind of going into OTAs and training camp.
Yeah, man, I think it's the deepest position on offense. And, you know, running back is a good one as well. But I think it's no question. To me, do you agree that wide receiver is the best, the deepest position group on offense?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about O-line, man. The O-line is interesting. So everyone that watches my channel, they know I've been wanting the 49ers to invest a lot into this O-line early in the draft. They haven't done that. We all got Trent Williams as a lock. Obviously, he's going to make the team. Aaron Banks as well last year of his contact. Jake Brendel, center, who's dealing with some kind of knee issue. Spencer Burford, who was a third-year guy with a third-round draft pick, I believe. Spencer Burford, or was it 4th? I think he's third-round draft pick. Burford. John Feliciano, this is signed an extension. He was probably the 3rd best lineman on the team last year. He's going to make it. Colton McKivitz just got an extension. He's going to make it. Dominic Pooney was the 3rd-round draft pick this year for the 49ers. He's definitely going to make this team. So those are the 7 locks I have on offensive line. What do they normally carry, Ro? Is it like 10 that they normally carry?
Yeah, I think it's like 8 to 9, somewhere around there.
Okay. So we got 7 here. Out of these remaining guys that are not on this lock list, and first of all, do you agree with my lock list, or is there someone I'm missing or take off?
I think that's pretty good. You know, the one guy who I might not say is a pure lock, although if I look at the rest of the room, he kind of is Spencer Burford. But I think he's as close to a lock as it can be.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, but he was taking first-team reps with the team in OTA, so I think 49ers, there's roster politics, right? They draft you. They want to see they're going to give you every chance to do well and for them to be right and correct about the decision to draft you. So I think Burford's probably going to make the team. So you got 7 dudes and you got 10 left. 10 guys left, right? Am I doing it right? Doing the math correct? Yeah, 10 dudes are still on this list. Now, read them off real quick. Ben Barch, Isaac Allerson, Chris Hubbard, Jarrett Kingston, Bryson Mays, Drake Nugent, Sebastian Gutierrez, Jalen Moore, Brandon Parker, Nick Sakelj. To me, the first one that I would say is a lock on this one, or not a lock, but the highest chance of making the team is Chris Hubbard. I think Chris Hubbard he might be better than Colton McKivitz, if I'm being honest. I think he's going to make the team. Who do you think has potential to make this team?
Now, I don't know if I'm going to go with Chris Hubbard being better than McKivitz. I don't. And I know we've seen the level of play from McKivitz. I don't know if I can go that far. Hubbard, though, is an intriguing guy. You know, signed the 1-year deal. To me, when I look at the group of the locks, good amount of interior guys. You know, your backups, you're going to have those are 2 interior guys as backups. Because let's just say that Feliciano maybe starts and maybe Feliciano starts at right guard and Brendel's at center. That's Burford and Puny as backups. If Feliciano's at center and Puty's at right guard or Burford's at right guard, you got 2 other interior guys at as your backups. You're gonna want at least 1 tackle in this group. So if you look at the group, it's really Hubbard, Jalen Moore, Brandon Parker. And so I think that those are the 3 guys that you're kind of looking for in terms of, those are the guys that kind of fit the mold. I don't think Brandon Parker is the guy at all. So I think it's between Hubbard and Moore. And so, I don't think I hate it at all. Hubbard at right tackle, he could be the guy. To me, though, right now, if I'm looking at it, would not be surprised if they operate with the same plan that they did last year. go 2 tackles because Moore's played pretty much on the left and Hubbard's played pretty much on the right. So you go 9 O-line and you keep 2 tackles, which I don't know if that's the best plan overall, but that could be the case just because of where they've played in the past.
Yeah, and interesting development too. Like everyone knows, if you've been following me, I wanted Jackson Powers Johnson center to be our pick 31 in the draft. Then I wanted them to get Kingston with their next pick, or double R. Double R. I don't know who went to the Ravens. Can't think of his name for
Rosengarten.
whatever reason. Right. Yeah, in the second round. And then I think you could have got Pooney. Now I think that would have been a better O line than what we're looking at here. Jarrett Kingston was a draft pick. Not a lot of people are really high on. Supposedly has short arms, not very powerful. So I don't really understand the Kingston pick other than he's mobile. And I know the 49ers like mobile offensive linemen. But I'm not a big believer based on what I've seen and heard in Kingston. So he may be the kind of guy that gets drafted and actually doesn't make the 53. Drake Nugent is interesting because he can play center, and Jake Brendel is injured. And a lot of people are hopeful that Drake Nugent becomes that guy. And then again, Chris Hubbard, I think, is the best tackle option on this list. So, I could see them going, Chris Hubbard, possibly Drake Nugent. I don't know. Ben Barch, maybe. Jalen Moore's been around. It's going to be – Jalen Moore did actually get some valuable time last year when Trent went down, and Aaron Banks as well, I believe. So we'll see, man. You say 9. Give me the other 4 again, or the other 2.
Yeah, I say 9. I think it's going to be 9 overall. I think 9, and I would put for now. I put Hubbard and Moore as the 8 and 9.
All right, we'll see. I mean, imagine being on a NFL team. You finally made it to the NFL, and you got to compete with 10 guys for 2 roster spots. That's tough, man. That's tough. We'll see, man. I'm hoping one of these young guys emerges. Drake Nugent. I think the injury of the 10-9ness of Jake Brendel does leave some opportunity for some of these guys. If Jake Brendel can't go for some reason, and I'm sure he'll be able to, but if for some reason he can't be the center this year, who do you think it is? You think it's Feliciano?
I think right now it's Feliciano. Yeah, if Brendel
Okay.
can't go, I even think that if Feliciano kind of, if he plays well, that opens up that right guard opportunity right now. And I think that a guy
Yeah.
like Dominic Puny could, once he gets the reps. I know Burford's the first team right now, but that's expected. Puny hasn't gotten any reps. I think that
Yeah.
they could give Puny a real shot to compete if that arthritis kind of lingers into camp. You see Puny in at right guard, and then you just look to play your 5 best offensive linemen at that point.
Yeah. And, so here's my final question on the offense before we move on to the defense. But to me, the quarterback position is better. The halfback position is better. The wide receiver position is better compared to last year. Fullback is the same. Tight end is a question mark. I'm not sure if that's a better tight end group or not. And then offensive line, I think, is better. Not as good as I would want them at all, but I think they're slightly better than last year. Do you agree with the better or worse takes on all those positions?
Um, Tight end, yeah. I would say they're even. I don't know if there's too much of upgrade just because of the uncertainty with a guy like Campbell out too, and even Braden Willis at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think every other position is better outside of those. So that's good. So that's the offense. We talk special teams. We talk kicker, punter. I do want to get Rohan's take about who's going to be returning kicks when we get back. And then we're going to talk about the defense. I'm going to run this 17-second commercial. We'll be back talking defense. Give us 17 seconds. Hensley Real Estate and Mortgage has been serving all of California since 2009. I would love to help you and your family. Whether you're buying, selling, financing, or refinancing, please reach out. I'd love to help. Visit RyanGHensley.com for more information. I just got done. I'm getting a phone call right now. I just got done helping my 10th 49er fan that I met on YouTube or Twitter buying a house, another veteran. For some reason, I've helped a lot of veterans, which I'm super grateful for. But yeah, I just got another one in contract. Also, another guy who watches the show, always in the chat, reached out to me, wants to get pre-qualified to purchase his home. Can't thank you guys enough for reaching out to me for all your real estate and mortgage needs in the state of California. Thank you very much. And thanks for watching that commercial. All right, Ro, before we go on to defense, we were looking at the defense here. But before we move on, I didn't ask you who's going to be returning kicks and punts. What's your best bet on that one?
Yeah, I think that one's really interesting. I think that one's where it's like really wide open. I think Cowling right now is a guy who, when you think about it, right, you might not want to injure some of those bigger guys. So Cowling could be a guy who's kind of accelerated in that role. But I think with the new rules, you might want to see Debo Samuel out there. I think especially if you're thinking of getting more volume to Ayuk, if this is Debo Samuel's last true year, get as much value out of him as you can. I mean, I would be I'd want to see him in one of those roles for sure as that kick returner.
That is interesting, man. And then Isaac Garendo, I don't know how good he is at returning kicks. Like he doesn't. I've heard he doesn't have like the greatest lateral movement, but his speed is ridiculous. So he could be a guy that gets an opportunity there too. So yeah, that's another position I'm curious about. I'm excited because I thought Ray was okay, but nothing spectacular, and hopefully we can get an improvement in that regard as well. All right, brother. Let's talk defense. Our defensive ends, I got Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Yatura Gross, Matos as locks for the 49ers this coming season at defensive end. First of all, do you agree with those locks? Are those guys guaranteed, or am I missing one, or should someone be off this list?
No, I think that those three are pretty clear. Both obviously for the obvious reasons. The other two, good guaranteed money, signed 2-year deals. They're here for sure in this year.
Okay, so after that, beyond that, I'm going to be real, man. I haven't done enough research on these dudes. I'm familiar with Alex, but Austin Bryant, Raymond Johnson III, Sam, I don't want to butcher that. How do you pronounce his last name, Rohan? I'll let you do it.
I don't even know if I can do it. Yenonu. Okua
Yeah.
Yenonu.
You see how cowardly that was? I was like, I don't want to do it. Rohan, how do you say it? That was horrible. My fault, bad. My bad, brother. And then Alex Barrett. How many defensive ends do you think the 49ers keep, and who's it going to be?
Yeah, this is an interesting group. I mean, I think Drake Jackson maybe could be involved with this group as well at defensive end.
Oh, why is
He's
he
a
not
guy.
on here? Holy crap. Oh, yeah, you're right. I don't have Drake
Yeah,
Jackson listed on here. That's
I think
interesting.
yeah, he could
Yeah.
be a guy who's listed in this group as well. But you always talk about how the defensive line, the Niners carry a hell of a lot of guys. Oh, the last guy also is Robert Beal. Robert Beal, being
What am
with
I
this group
doing?
as well.
No wonder.
So
Thanks, guys.
Drake Jackson, Robert Beal, those two. At the moment, I think you got the three locks. And like I said, I think this is an interesting group. I think you're deeper at D tackle this year just because you got a couple of more rotational pieces to cover Armstead with Malik Collins and and Jordan Elliott. And so to me, right now, I would say you probably carry 4 defensive ends. That would be the 3 listed, and I would put Robert Beal as that 4th guy with the potential of carrying 5 if Drake Jackson can show you something here in a make or break offseason.
What the heck, man? I'm so annoyed with myself. I don't like getting things missing things. So yeah, let me go ahead and fix these guys. I want to take off all of it. But I think you're right, man. Obviously, that was a huge blunder. Robert Bill and Drake Jackson probably get an opportunity to make this. So how many total do you think these guys have in
You're
defensive
saying
ends?
total D lineman?
D ends. Like are they going to be specific
Oh,
about D ends, and or are you saying you would like to combine it to make it easier on you?
I usually combine it. The reason being, some of those D tackles are lighter. They play a little bit of a, they don't necessarily, they play a little bit of a versatile role. And also you see the Niners, you'll see them with a bunch of different packages. I think though that the goal was ultimately Floyd and Gross Matos are kind of rotating at one of those positions. You're hoping that Beal can step up and be that 4th guy who can rotate with Bosa on occasion. And then you obviously see the mixing and matching. You see some guys kick outside, you see some guys kick inside. And so with the depth at D tackle, think that you're in a good you're in a good spot. I think they ultimately carry 9 this year, maybe a little lower than the 10 and 11 of years past. I think they carry 9 this year, with it being 4 ends and 5 tackles.
Okay, so 9 total. We got Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Yatir Gross Matos as DNs, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott. And I think we agree, right? Both of those guys, all 6 of those guys are locks. And
Yeah,
then you think 9. So who are the 3 that I'm missing?
I would probably, if I were to guess right now, I would think Robert Beal makes the roster. For me, I would think defensive tackles wise, 2 of the bunch with Kevin Givens, Kalia Davis, T.Y. McGill. I think 2 of those 3 make the roster.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. They signed this Evan Anderson UDFA guy who is absolute unit. I think he's
He's
what 300.
huge,
He's huge.
humongous. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe they want a run stopper and he has an opportunity. I'm not sure, but I think Kalia Davis has been the guy they've been hoping to fill that role for a while. So I think you're pretty accurate on the possibilities at defensive end, defensive tackle. There's a lot of dudes fighting for what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11 dudes fighting for basically 3 spots if you're right, and they only keep 9. So and I'm sure they're hoping a lot of these guys can make the practice squad. That's probably what's going to happen to Evan Anderson. He'll make the practice squad and they can pull him up as he develops if they need him. So yeah, I think it's right. Is there somebody on here has no chance? Like who the hell's
I don't
Shaquille
think
Brown?
so. I
Who's
think,
Shaquille
yeah.
Brown? I don't know who that is.
Oh, in terms of who they are,
Do you
I
know
think
anything about Shaquille Brown?
second year guy from Troy. I think solid frame. That I don't know too much about his film in the end, like film last year necessarily. He's a guy can't body to compete.
Yeah, it looks like a UDFA that Tennessee signed. 6'3", 295. Interesting. Yeah, probably a camp body. All right, man. Well, we talked D line. We got a couple positions left. Linebacker, safety, corner, and the corner I think is the deepest position on this team,
Yeah,
outside of wide receiver. But let's talk
I'll
linebacker
say.
real quick. Let's talk linebacker. Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw are locks. Assuming Dre Greenlaw is healthy, he might start on the pup list and then come back at the deadline. That's probably what's going to happen. But I think he's a lock either way. And then you got Devontae Campbell, who the 49ers signed from Green Bay.
Yeah,
Tatum Bethune, who I really like, the 49ers 7th-round draft pick this year. Really intrigued by that guy. We all know Demetrius Flanagan-Flowers, good special teams player, has been around for a long time. Jalen Graham is very interesting to me, as well as D. Winters. And then you also got Curtis Robinson and Ezekiel Turner. How many linebackers do you think the 49ers keep, and who do they keep?
I've talked about some lighter numbers. At certain positions, said 9 at D line rather than 10. Talked you could potentially go 3 tight ends. You might go 8 or 9 linemen. I think you keep 6 again. I think linebackers, the deep group here. I think you keep 6 because of the Greenlaw injury specifically. I mean, Greenlaw, you don't know if he's going to be back week 1. It seems like Pup could even be an option. We'll see, obviously, as training camp comes, how his recovery goes. So Devondre Campbell was the insurance signing. I think that, that's your third guy right now. And then I like both of the rookies from last year. I think Winters and Graham make the roster again, adding you to 5. And then I think one of Tatum Bethune and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles makes the roster. Flanagan-Fowles has obviously been one of those guys that one of those special team stalwarts that the team really likes. And I think Bethune also, you drafted him in the 7th round. He's a guy you might want to try out. If I were to give it to one, probably give it to Flanagan-Fowles. I think Bethune can safely make it to the practice squad. You drafted him in the 7th round in a not very deep class. I don't think the rest of the NFL kind of thinks of him right now as the NFL guy that they'd put a 53-man spot on. So I think you can take him to the practice squad. Flanagan-Fowles gets his last year here in San Francisco, but I think you carry 6 here with this group.
All right. What about excuse me? What about if Dre Greenlaw can't go?
If
Who
Drake Greenlaw,
starts in his place? Yeah.
I think if Drake Greenlaw can't go, Campbell would right now start in his place. At least that's just the way it seems, given that they paid him $5 million. I also think it gives you the chance to add that other linebacker on the roster. If Greenlaw's on pup, he won't count for the 53 to begin the year. And so you get the option to add Bethune on the 50 to add Bethune on the 53. You go with those as your 6 linebackers, having some extra depth.
I think you're right again, man. Hopefully as this offseason heats up, you and I can find something to debate about. But so far, I agree with everything Rohan's saying. All right, let's talk safety before we get to corner, because corner is very interesting to me. At the safety position, Talanoa Hufanga coming off an injury, I think they're going to give him every opportunity to get back his. I think he's earned the opportunity to be the assumed starter at that position, as well as Jair Brown coming back, who had a impressive rookie season. Nothing over the top, but impressive nonetheless. And I think he's going to be the guy that steps up in year 2, and I think he's a good player as well. But I actually think Malik Mustafa might be better than both these guys. I know that's blasphemous to say about even including Huff, who I really love, but I'm a big fan of Malik Mustafa, and he's going to make this team 100%, and he could end up emerging better than all of these. So these are my 3 locks. Do you agree with these 3 locks?
I agree. Yeah. I think that those are. Oh, yeah. I honestly think they're actually 4 locks.
And that's Odom.
Yeah, because they extended him this offseason, I believe. So because of the extension, I think he's a lock to make the roster.
Yeah, to be real, man, I've never heard of Jalen Mahoney. I vaguely heard of Eric Harris. I saw Taylor Hawkins, who is impressive, but I think you're right. George Odom has a lot of special teams value, and he's very versatile on defense. I think those are the 4 guys that are going to end up making the team. But we'll see, man. Maybe one of these younger guys emerge. So we agree on that as well. Before we finish off the corners, got another super chat by my friend Dave, who says 17 seconds to show just how much of an awesome guy Ryan really is. If you guys need anything in his markets, you would be very wise to choose Ryan Hensley Services. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it, man. I cover all of California. I'm a mortgage broker and a real estate broker. I've been doing this since 2009. If you need me, hit me up. I appreciate the endorsement. Thank you, Dave. All right, corner, man, which is, to me, receiver and corner are the deepest positions. That's why I was a little peculiar. It was strange to me. Like we kind of touched on why they drafted 2 wide receivers, even though it's one of the deepest positions already. But I guess I understand why they drafted Renardo Green, even though this is the best. Before they drafted Renardo Green, to me, this is one of the best defensive back corner units that the 49ers had in a long time, with the additions of Isaac Edom and Rock Ya-Sin, who I think are really good. Plus, we saw little sparks from Samuel Womack. People don't necessarily like Ambry very much, but he's had some valuable minutes on this team. I thought this team was pretty strong going into the draft. Then they signed Renardo Green, and a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that not a lot of these guys, especially Charvarius Ward, Diamondo Lenore, they're on. This is it for them, unless they sign a new contract. But right now, I have Charvarius Ward, Diamondo Lenore, Renardo Green as locks to make this team. Would you agree with those as locks? Is there anyone I'm missing?
Yeah, those are my 3 locks as well.
Okay, and then if I had to bet on 2 other guys, I would say Isaac Edom and Rock Ya-Sin make this team as well. But I don't think it's guaranteed if one of these younger dudes steps up. So I think Isaac Edom and Rock Ya-Sin are right up there. Isaac Edom, I think, is really, really good corner. I think the 49ers have. I don't know about Renardo Green yet. I haven't seen him in the NFL. You know, the knock is that he commits a lot of holding penalties, and he was able to get away with it in college. So we'll see how that translates in the NFL. But Charvarius Ward, Diamondo Lenore are awesome corners. Isaac Edom is very talented. If you look at what he did last year for the Saints, he was in the upper echelon of corners in his time there. So very good talent. If Renardo Green is what they say he is, I mean, you got 4 solid dudes. Rock Ya-Sin is another guy. Super talented, just hasn't worked out completely for him, but I think the possibilities are there for the 49ers. So how many corners do you think the 49ers keep, and who would it be?
I think it's 5 or 6. I think you got your 3 guys. I think Yadam is actually close to a lock, I would say, given the contract they gave him, and also the expectation that he's going to be the next guy up at outside corner. Seems like Renardo Green, they're trying out in the slot to begin. He might end up the starting nickelback. Lenore on the outside, Ward on the outside, and Yadam is the top outside guy. So I think that those 4 close locks pretty much to make the roster. I think it depends on whether what they do with the rest of the roster, because like you said, this is a deep group. I ultimately right now would think that they take 6. Ya-Sin would be 1, and then you have the competition between Samuel Womack and Ambry Thomas for that last spot. but I could also very well see them taking 5 with the versatility that they have. Lenore and Green can both play inside out. So you have 2 nickel options. You have Yadam and you have Rock Yassin, who both have good experience. I know Yassin's dealt with injuries. Yadam, though, had a solid year last year. He could very well play on the outside as a starter, and you might not have to have him start this year. So I think that you could go with 5 with this group if you don't see enough from Thomas and Womack. At the moment, though, I'd guess 6 and say one of those two guys gets a spot as they try and kind of keep some extra depth.
Yeah, so I talked about it earlier. I
Oh,
have
shoot.
actually
I'm
go
wrong.
ahead.
I'm actually wrong. As I look at the depth chart, this is where I was realizing why I said they take 6. Sixth guy actually is a guy I don't see on your list, Daryl Luter. That is my sixth guy. I was
What?
wondering there was a
Damn,
guy
man.
I felt I was missing, Daryl Luter. That's why I had them taking 6. I think it's Yadam, and I think it's Luter who are the 5. I think Yasin is going to be the 6th, and then if there's a competition, I feel like it would be between those 3 young guys, and I think Luter takes the 6th spot.
Yeah, you're right, man. I don't know how I missed Daryl Luter and the other guys I missed on this list, but that's why I'm glad I did this show with you. How'd I miss Drake Jackson, Robert Hill, and Daryl Luter? I don't know. But I'm glad that you brought him up. Daryl Luter is actually very impressive. That is interesting that you brought him up. Yeah, it could be Travis Ward, Diamond Lenore, Renardo Green, Isaac Edom, Rock Sin, and Daryl Luter. Those could be your guys. Ambry Thomas is a guy I talked about earlier about the possibility of trading an Elijah Mitchell. To me, Ambry Thomas is another guy that maybe the 49ers try to get a 6th or 7th round pick for. I just think they are too deep. And we've seen Ambry Thomas, a lot of up and down. He's serviceable, where I think a lot of NFL teams might be somewhat interested in his services, to where you might be able to get a 6th or 7th round pick for him. But he seems like a guy that they're going to try to trade because I don't think he makes this roster. To be honest, do you think Ambry makes this roster? Sounds like you don't.
I don't. Right now, I
Yeah.
don't, but I can understand it, but right now, I just think this is too crowded of a room for him to make the roster.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you could get a trade if for him, but maybe you could find someone desperate for a corner and get a 6th or 7th rounder. But they might just have to cut this guy, to be real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that that's where it is right now.
All right, man. So let's talk about what we did with the offense. Let's talk about it with the defense. I think the defensive ends are better with Leonard Floyd compared to Chase Young. Gross Matos, I think people are sleeping on a little bit. I think he has a ton of potential. If I had to say better or worse on DNs, I would say better. Defensive tackle, I'm not sure about necessarily. I was never a big Armstead guy. To be honest, he was always hurt. So I'm interested to see what happens with Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. So I'm kind of got question marks. I think DN's slightly better. I think defensive tackle is kind of a question mark for me. What do you think about those two positions at better or worse?
Um, D end, I would probably say looks better right now, just because last year you had a lot of inconsistency with that fourth spot. You added players, Chase Young, who I thought was solid, as well as um, Randy Gregory. But I think that with Floyd is better than Chase Young is right now. Gross Matos has good depth. I think that you have a solid trio there. D tackle, I would say, is worse. I do think that Hargrave is better, but I don't think it's considerably worse. I think it's pretty marginal in terms of the difference because you have an extra guy as well in Jordan Elliott. The
Yeah.
games you're losing with Armstead, you now have a good duo there that can rotate. So yeah, I think linebacker is a wash. It's pretty similar. You might be worse just because you're missing a bit of Greenlaw, and so that's where I might consider the room worse at the beginning. Safety, I think, is probably a little worse. I think Gibson was pretty valuable for the versatile role that he could play, but it really depends on how quickly Mustafa comes together. Because if he comes together quick, I mean, that's a really good sign for the Niners, and I think that room could be similar. Corners better.
Corner's better, no question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Corner, I'm impressed with the corner room for the 49ers. So, yeah, man, I think that kind of sums it up. And, it sounds like, you know, uh, David Lombardi has a message for us too.
I honestly don't think that you get intel this deep anywhere.
Just saying. Thanks, David. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, man. Great show, Rohan. I think we covered it as well as we could, man. And it's going to be interesting seeing some of these battles play out. Who's going to make the team? Because there's always a surprise every year. A guy that emerges that we didn't think was going to emerge. There's always a guy that gets cut, and unfortunately, knock on wood, there's always injury that plays a hand in all of this stuff. Rohan, what do you got going on your channel, man? And how can people find it?
Yeah, I mean, I took a little bit of a break, had, finals and all that kind of stuff, had a little vacation. I am back on the wagon now, starting this upcoming week. Gonna be going a couple of days. I got Steph coming on the channel. My normal show with Marco will be there. We'll have a couple of things planned next week as we kind of get back to the norm of recording.
Yeah, man, this was a good exercise for me. For one, you guys helped me fill out my chart. I was missing like 2 or 3 dudes. So that is very helpful for me. And then it's just good to start talking through these things as we get closer to training camp and what to watch for when we're there. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be there this year. Depends on when we actually end up going to Hawaii. I was supposed to go in June, but I had a bunch of things, so we pushed it back. So I'm not sure when I'm going to Hawaii, but if I'm not in Hawaii, I'm going to be at training camp. Are you going this year, Rohan?
I will be there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Another year covering training camp. Most likely I'll be there depending on when we go to Hawaii. Rohan is going to be on with me sometime. We got to figure out a time slot. Rohan, stick around after the show. I want to talk to you more in regards to that. Thank you guys so much for watching. No call-in show tomorrow. Maybe I might be able to squeeze it in, but I got a lot of stuff going on. I'll let you guys know. Otherwise, I'll see you back here Monday, 9 a.m. with Croc. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I appreciate you watching. You guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching the Ryan G. Hensley Show. Your support is greatly appreciated. Please visit RyanGHensley.com to learn more about me and all of my businesses. Whether it's real estate, credit repair, solar, whatever it is, you can find out more about me on that website. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. Thanks again for watching.